Okay, so really quickly here, right before bed, I play back the video that I uploaded earlier, and I realized that one of the things in that video is that that I noticed really even more so as I was playing it back is that I was having quite the dilemma with a number of the teams and only being able to protect six players for them. So as I was playing it back, it became pretty clear to me that, well, a simple solution to that would be simply to allow a seventh man, that each team protects a seventh man. And I think that everything else still goes in terms of these will be teams that will both A, protect their identity, but also B, through the whole redrafting, be able to make some significant changes and probably, hopefully, even improve substantially to make the league even more competitive for my replaying of it for the 68 season. So, really, it did seem like for each team, if I just allowed a seventh man, there was a pretty obvious candidate, that was missing from the original six, no pun intended. So, and I guess initially that's kind of why I like the idea of the 6 and 6 and the 16s protecting six core guys. But anyway, the seventh does seem to solve a lot of things that I guess left me feeling kind of uneasy. Sorry, it's a bit late here, so I am trying to talk quietly here right before bed. But Ken Hodge for Boston. He's narrowly getting it over John McKenzie and Derek Sanderson, at least because those two actually ended up going to the WHA. Not that I would know that at this time, a couple of seasons thereafter. And so Hodge, by way of I guess of just being sort of the more core Bruins player. And it even crossed my mind as well that Ken Hodge Jr. actually started out as a Boston Bruin, Ken Hodge's son, when he played his pro career. I think it was 91 was Ken Hodge Jr.'s rookie season there. So Ken Hodge for Boston. And as I was playing that video back and listening to it, I went back to Hockey Reference for the umpteenth time, and also happened to notice when I was looking at Chicago, the C by Pierre Pilote's name. He was their captain that season. So I cringed a bit when I saw that, and I realized that if I'm going to allow Chicago to protect one more player, though he was older at this time, I think Pierre Pilote, again, in terms of the team core component of it, that being a big part of the criteria, Pilote's a pretty obvious choice there for the Blackhawks to protect. Keep in mind too that with all of these teams, whereas if this were real, they might protect maybe a more prospect heavy, handful in their lineup. I think that would be more logical, but these teams will all be able to improve through the draft as well. So I'm keeping that in mind with the teams that are protecting primarily older players. Although, I mean, at this point, like looking at elsewhere in Chicago's lineup, like Bobby Hull was still only 29, for instance, so they weren't too old, they weren't too bad. Gary Unger, even though he'd just come to Detroit earlier in this season, this is one actually that I might have to think about a little further, but right now, tentatively at least, I'm going to say Gary Unger for the Detroit Red Wings. The only little modicum of doubt that I have here about this one is that normally when I do something like this where I'm condensing the league, I like to disqualify players who have not played a complete season. And so Unger, on one hand, he's a prospect. On the other hand, I see there just the 28 games. So I'm going to have to think about that a little further, actually. But tentatively, it will be probably, again, either Gary Unger or Bart Crashley. I know that those were the two I was giving the closest look when I was going back through. Let me actually have a look at Crashley here as I speak. Maybe it will be Crashley then by way of his playing 57 games, his having played 57 games. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to do it. I'm going to think about this one. I will sleep on this one. But I will be able to sleep a lot better given that I'm going to allow Montreal to keep Serge Savard again. So if a team is protecting seven players and not six, they're definitely going to allow at least for one core premium prospect, I would say, I guess, among the seven. And so for Montreal, it's pretty obvious for them to protect Serge Savard. So it'll be Savard for Montreal. Rod Sealing for New York. Between Sealing and Goyette was actually 34 in 1968. So I think Rod Sealing makes sense. You do want to draft if you're a GM looking ahead to the 70s. And again, the criteria for this is varied, but I think Sealing is the next logical choice to protect for the Rangers. And there you have Dave Keon. Dave Keon will remain a Toronto Maple Leaf after all because it's just weird to imagine, even though he did go to the World Hockey Association, it's just weird to imagine. I guess he finished the tail end of his career, I think, with Hartford in like 1980 or something like that. Pretty sure it was 80, thereabouts. But Keon, again, he has to remain a Toronto Maple Leaf. So, I will, particularly with Savard and Keon, given what I said about the Habs and Leafs, I will sleep more easily now that I'm having Savard remain a Montreal Canadian and Keon remain a Toronto Maple Leaf. So, I mean, there will always be players you could argue, oh, the team should protect that guy and that guy as well. But again, I want it to be a pretty good draft as well, with lots of lucrative, interesting choices available. So this will still permit that. I think. I think it's just the right balance, the right combination of protected guys. And yeah, the only one that I'm not going to completely commit to at this point would be Unger versus Crashley. Although, by my own criteria, what I just said there, the fact that Crashley played close to a full season, even though he didn't really blossom in the NHL at this point, at least he'll have a decent card on a Detroit team that didn't do so well in 68. This will be a decent card for Detroit going forward. And then hopefully for the Red Wings' sake, they will be able to improve through the draft. They'll get a lot of lucky, like early round selections. I am going to spin that wheel again in each and every single round. And so you could have some teams that could benefit maybe a little unfairly, but be that as it may, I still think it's going to, provide more of a competitive and interesting balance than would have historically with these 6 teams. Anyway, that is just a little addition to the video that I made and uploaded earlier. So just wanted to get that up, as soon as possible. I might, since I'm looking at Crashley right now, I might even officially commit actually to Crashley. Although, I mean, Unger did have, a bit of a reputation, history, and future with the team, but maybe the 28 games there will disqualify Unger. I might have to, and again, I'm sort of making this, coming up with this as I go, but I might have to put like a 40 or 50 game minimum, although if any superstars were injured, then kind of throws a wrench into that as well. If any established stars were injured that year, but anyway. All right, good night.